We are activating your unique self-discovery one show at a time. The Orchard of Wisdom Self-Discovery podcast are at your fingertips, just waiting to inspire and invite you in discovering just how awesome you really are and how to navigate through life in joy, enrichment, personal abundance, in mind, body, spirit, heart, and soul. All the people we bring you are here to serve you on your journey of life. Do enjoy our next show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Mental Health Awareness right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your show host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful repeat guest, Kimberly Best. And she does know best, as we have learned in our last show together. And I do invite you to go back and listen to it because she really did talk about a lot of things like the biology of conflict, the resolving the conflicts in a productive, non-litigious way, in mediation, facilitation, collaborative problem solving. There is an answer if you're willing to look for it. And as I just said, sometimes it's not even the answer that you're looking for, maybe just addressing that there is a problem there altogether. So I do invite you to go back and listen to that show because really there was a lot to learn there. But today we're going to be talking about mediating conflict. Where does that conflict come from? How do you mediate it? How do you actually look at the dispute resolution skills? What kind of skills do you actually need in place? She is a trained conflict manager, bringing people together neutrally on both sides, confidential self-environment, not about blame. Everybody has a voice, systems design, planning, alternate to litigation, which I can never say the word, sorry, empowering and educational. So she's been doing this a long time and she knows exactly what she's talking about. She's an RN, an MA, and an author of How to Live Forever, a guide to writing the final chapter of your life story, which is a wonderful book, which we talked about also in our last show. But conflict, can we get through life without it? No. Whether we want to or not, it's going to be there. Even if it's a conflicting idea, it's there, isn't it? Why do we get so uptight about conflict? Well, sometimes I just think it's the mind's inquiry.
Oh my goodness, that's a beautiful way of putting it. First of all, it's fantastic to be back. I just adore you, and it's just an honor to be back here.
Love you, come anytime.
Okay, I'll come every day. That's a great question about conflict because it's one of those things that just is, like you said. And people cringe when we even say the word conflict because somewhere along the line, we've been told that we're not supposed to have that. And in fact, it's as natural as your cells are in conflict. It's a sign that something needs to be addressed or changed or recognized or whatever. But I think the biggest reason that we are reluctant about conflict is most of us haven't learned the tools for dealing with it.
Yeah.
So it's this very scary thing that can tear us apart. That's what we think of as conflict. And I would love to normalize that as it's a inconvenient thing that helps us find a better way forward.
Right. Well, is this a kind of an inquiry? I'm in conflict with what I should do. Isn't that kind of I'm inquiry? I don't quite know where to go. So I'm inquiring, what can I do? I've got this road. Should I take that road? I've got this road. And then but what if I take that road? But what if I take this road? And then we get in the what if, what if, what if, what if. Next thing you know, we're stuck at the junction. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, you can keep asking too many questions, but I was about to make you an honorary mediator because being curious is the best way. And by being curious, it is, understanding the other side of the conflict, whether you're in conflict with yourself or with someone else. But tell me more, where is it coming from? What need is not being met here? I mean, there are questions that open up doors in conflict. And one of my favorite conflict people said, if you take a step, the ground will appear, which I absolutely love that. It's the same with conflict. If you try some way to resolve it, to move through it, whichever it needs, it's trial and error. Try and try again.
Yeah. I have this saying, step out into the abyss, blind, deaf, and dumb in order to see, hear, and feel. And sometimes we've just got to be centered and trust. Like, I just don't need to know the answer right now. I just need to trust and step out, and the answer will be revealed.
Isn't that the scariest thing in the world? That's just,
Yes,
you
but
know,
it's the universe is with you. You're not alone. When you kind of step into that trust, I think half the time we create a conflict because we're too much in our head.
I agree. Well, I completely agree. I learned something late in my older years that I wish I'd have
Mature,
learned.
mature.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I wish I'd have learned earlier, and that
Mm.
was to let go of the outcome I thought should be, which is
Mm.
exactly what you're talking about. I do believe the universe conspires to bring us the desires of our heart, and
Yes.
we get in our own way.
Oh,
Because if we think, here's what I found, if I think this is the answer, or this is the person, or this is what I need to have or do, I have lost sight of the vast amount of things that are actually options out there. If
Mm-hmm.
I get up in the morning now and I say, universe, please take over and let me do what I'm supposed to do versus what I think I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And it changed my life. I mean, it's
Mm.
crazy to say that, but can't believe it myself. But it has definitely changed my life, and I definitely have better days. You never know what's going to
Mm.
come up if you're
No.
not looking for the stone in front of you. You see the flowers around you. I mean,
Right.
it's just
Yeah.
transformative.
I think it takes the burden off us
That's
because
true too.
we're trying to look for a meaning in everything. And sometimes it just simply is a stone at your feet. Right? With this last weekend, we celebrated my grandson's second, my son-in-law's birthday, my daughter-in-law's birthday, and my daughter's baby shower. So it was a crazy weekend. And my son has this 8-year-old stepdaughter, and we were sitting waiting for a restaurant to open, and she sat down, I'm bored. And then, my ex was there, but he's a martial artist. So both of them immediately said, but you've got to be present with self, right? Is that when you become present with self and just be still in the moment, suddenly you see so much out there. How can you be bored when you pay attention to everything that's out there? But boredom is because you're not paying attention, you're rushing through life, chasing an illusion of you think that's going to make you happy or fulfill you when the answers were in the moment.
Yeah, you look for opportunities.
Mm.
My dad used to tell us if we ever dared say we were bored, that boring people get bored. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense,
Yeah.
if because you kind of have to create,
Yes.
you know. And if you do see what's around you, it's pretty much impossible to be bored.
Because there's so much around us that we don't pay attention to. I mean,
Mhm.
really, quite honestly, like nature is so incredibly beautifully, complexly simple, right? And if we look at the simplicity of nature and just look at, like right outside my daughter's window, they have a water thing for the hummingbirds. And you just watch them come all different colors and with the water and off they go. And it's just, so, always fascinating to watch them. You know, uh, how many times are they flapping? Did they get enough water? Are they going to say hello or run from us? There's so much that we don't pay attention, do we? Do you think that an
Mhm.
awful lot of our conflict is the fact that we don't pay attention to what's in front of us right now?
Well, I think we're in our heads a lot. I think there's so many reasons. Some of it is we tend to have stories of the things we should or
Mm.
shouldn't, or other people should or shouldn't. And none of those stories, unfortunately, are true. There are no he should, she should. I debunk that pretty fast because,
Hmm.
like, who told you that's the way it should be? Because it is what it is.
Yes, it is what it is. But we
Yeah.
don't see what it is because we do make up the stories of what it should be.
That's right. That's right. You're exactly right.
And that's
And
where the
and those
conflict comes
don't.
in.
Yeah, and part of the reason we make up those stories is because we're wired to want to understand, and in the absence of truth, our brains want to trick us into making up something.
Yeah.
And but we're smarter than that. That part of our brain that does that, we can say, "Is that actually true?" And then the truth would be, "I don't know." And the
Mm.
next step is to ask, which
Yeah.
goes back to the curiosity. And like you said, you won't always have the answer. You
Hmm.
have to learn to hold the space where there's
Mm.
uncertainty.
Yeah.
But you might have a better answer not having an answer than making up your own, because we
Yeah.
usually make up a not very pleasant
Fill in the
answer.
gap where no, it was just meant to be a gap.
Right,
Right? Yeah.
right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's like people who, who want to move forward in life. But yes, I've got to prepare for it. I've got to have the manual. I've got to know where the next step is. And this, where I say the leap of faith. I would say the biggest leap you'll take is the first step. But put one
Oh,
foot in front of the other and pay attention to where you're walking and what's around you, and you will find everything that you need has been provided.
and I think for me, I've experienced that leaning into the wisdom of
Mm.
others,
Yes.
people that, I mean, that what I've learned on my own without being too stubborn to be taught, I've learned the hard way.
Yes. 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 Oh, yeah. I'm
Yes,
familiar with that one.
and now I sit at the feet of, I mean, everybody has something to teach me,
Hmm.
everybody. And when I can learn, it's just, that's more exciting to me,
Yeah.
and more fulfilling, and more chances of having a better ending to whatever that conflict is than if
And
I
a
have to do it by
conversation.
trial and error.
I mean, this is why I'm always saying if we have book clubs where people talk about the book, when I'm saying have podcast clubs, listen to a podcast, right? Take your notes, whatever, then come together and share what you got out of it, right? And
That's
somebody
a
may get
brilliant idea.
somebody gets this, somebody gets that, and now you're actually sharing all those wonderful perspectives. Oh, I haven't seen it from that point of view. Oh, I didn't look at it. Oh, I didn't hear that bit. I must have missed that bit. But now you're getting a whole picture. And it's not, no, no, my opinion is right, your opinion is wrong. It's each other's perspective. And when we open up, it's like beautiful spices in a dish. It makes the dish more delectable.
In a nutshell, you've described kind of after the process of mediation what the outcome looks like. And
Mm,
you described facilitation as well, bringing people together and asking questions that bring out all these different views. And then you see what you have in common, or you've just baked something that
yeah.
is beautiful because of each person's perspective, that
Of
it's not
everyone's
about,
taste. Everyone's
that's
taste.
right.
Everybody can enjoy the dish because everybody had a part in it.
That's exactly
Mm,
right. And it just makes it that much better. Yeah.
yeah.
More and more people are going toward, whether it's a group discussion, which, probably should be a little bit structured just in the
Hmm.
interest of keeping it from going sideways, which is then a facilitated dialogue.
The
Um,
conductor, facilitator conductor that keeps everybody's
yeah.
music in rhythm.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I've never seen that happen where people don't leave saying, we need to do more of this. So I think in a podcast to share each other's wisdom and
Yeah,
insights by having a facilitation afterwards, I think that's a
yeah,
brilliant idea.
yes. Actually, I had thought about for businesses, companies where, it can become so disjointed. I would actually love to see them start an in-house podcast where they interview everybody working there. Why do you like to work here? What do you do in your spare time? Have you got a tip for someone? You know, um, what's your passion? Talk about it. Humanize everyone there. And then when
That's right.
everybody's listening, they pay more attention to that person. It's not just Joe who does this or Joan that does that. It's, oh, yeah, yeah, you love gardening, or I hear that you do this, I hear that you do that. And suddenly we pay more attention to each other. And I think it would bring companies together more. And I'm talking not just about the workers, CEO down to janitor, everybody contributing, because then I think it just opens up to be more of a family environment, which maybe also might be conflicting because families don't always get along, but a harmonious orchestra, you know. But I think it opens things up to make humanizing us all.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and give you that honorary mediation status because literally, when I'm working with a company, the first thing I do is talk to each person individually, and I usually write some sort of questionnaire to find out, where the problems are, what's good, what's bad, what's working, what's not. And then when I bring the people together, the very first thing I do is start exactly where you suggested, and that is tell me about yourself as a person.
Yes.
Because people can work in the same office for years
Hmm.
and not know a thing about the other people in the office.
Yeah.
And that happens almost every single time. A couple of people will know each other, but they won't know. So they're telling themselves a story. Well, I don't like Alice because Alice is always on Facebook on her phone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we sit down and talk and we find out that Alice's dad just had his leg amputated,
Right.
and she was following. I mean, it humanizes the people that we've made a story up about. And again, we do that. We're wired to do that, but we need to catch that and recognize it. And can you imagine if we spent a moment to get to know somebody we don't know?
And
Just
it
reached
doesn't mean
out.
you're going to, love everybody. And this is not, oh, kumbaya. It just means, okay, all right, maybe that person's a bit too intense in who they are, but I can respect that's who they are. If they're not my
Right.
cup of tea, that is fine. But that doesn't mean I turn against them. It doesn't mean I badmouth them. It doesn't mean it's them against me. It just is that they have a different energy to me, and I will be respectful. I remember actually, I don't know if I said this in the last show, but I was a mother's group, parent and tots, and I became president for the year. And I had bought all of the kids that were about to graduate to go into kindergarten some colorful shoelaces as a goodbye present and was throwing them a party. And I was allowed to spend up to $20 in my own discretion before it had to go to a vote. And one of the mothers got up and said, who the hell do you think you are? And laid into me, laid into me. And everybody else was so shocked, nobody said anything. And I said, if you feel about that, I'll pay for it myself. And I was very calm, went through the meeting, went home and cried like buckets, being under attack. At the end of the season, there was a party, and she came up to me and she was talking to me. And somebody said, how can you talk to her after what she did? And I said, it depends what I'm talking about. It does not hurt me to be courteous and kind, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be bosom buddies, right? I know she was going through something, and I was the dumping ground. But other people came up to me and apologized. I'm so sorry that I didn't step up at the time. But that you just handled it gracefully. In the moment, yes. But a jittering bag when I got home. And I made those all of those meetings short and sweet, good guest speakers, and let's all go home.
Yes, school boards. Well, the word grace came to mind because you definitely handled it with grace. And I was also thinking what a lonely place it is when other people don't have your back. You know what I'm saying? And you're standing there in the moment. So I think it's a very kind and the right thing to do that people came back and said, sorry, I didn't stand up for you.
It took them the whole, right,
the rest
the
of the
end of
year.
the year to say it.
Yeah, these things can take a lot of courage. And I think the reason they take a lot of courage is that we haven't normalized doing these things. And that's where learning how to do conflict comes in, because these things will happen.
Yes.
But then what next? I like to say that we hit a wall when that happens. The whole room hit a wall and didn't know what to do next. And to me, conflict is about changing that wall into a door.
Yeah.
So that there is a what next. Okay, so this was not pretty, and we've stepped on toes and hurt people's feelings, but that happens.
Yes.
I'm not going to shame you for the rest of your life.
Right.
That's where I saw grace. Like, you didn't shame her for the rest of her life. You didn't ignore her, cut her off. I mean, that's pretty unusual in today's times
I just
of how
kept it civil, because it was she didn't come at me attacking again. I don't think she was even aware of what she did. But I think it's also is we have no idea what somebody else is going through. And hurt people, right? Right. So she was hurting. And the other thing is, I love Don Rue, the 4 agreements, right? And one of those is, don't assume, and also don't take it personally. Her attack on me really wasn't really an attack on me. It was more of a whatever she was going through in a dumping ground. I was just dumped on. And although it hurt, it was something I had to kind of remove myself from, because it wasn't a personal attack on me per se.
You have to be in a pretty healthy place to not take it personally, because you're right. How you handled it came from a whole place. I know who I am. I know this wasn't about me, but You know,
I still went through all the other emotions to get there.
right? Oh, good for you. Because good for you. Because that is absolutely beautiful. Because most of us either have to do that or never get to the. I say people hold up a mirror and we look at it and we're like, oh, that's me. No, it's not you. Look in that mirror that someone else is holding up and like, I don't know that. That's you. That's not me. And then
Yes,
you
it's a
can,
reflection of themselves. Absolutely.
right,
Yeah.
right. No, that's not me in that mirror. I'm, bringing up shoelaces doesn't cause a major trigger.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but I think that's hard too because we're so wired to connect, and there's a level of us that wants and needs approval,
Yes.
acceptance and approval.
On
So
defense, right? We also want to kind of defend ourselves from the attack. And,
yeah.
at that time, it's like when my defense was fine, I will pay for it myself, so that nobody has the burden of it,
Oh yeah.
right?
That's
Nobody
me
can.
exactly. I will not burden anyone.
Right,
I'll take care of it myself. And then I'm like,
exactly.
okay, my work is
I
to
know.
learn to let other people help and not take it all on myself.
Right. But you do what you do in your situation. And I actually hate um, violent conflict. A conflict
Mm,
of not knowing what to do, which becomes the inquiry, is something I've learned to do. I'm conflicted because I haven't got enough information to make a decision, or outside information, inside information, all of that. But it's when conflict becomes aggressive. And then I think, especially if anybody's been through any form of aggression, and I had one of those marriages,
mm,
it leaves scars, it leaves defense. And so any form of that kind of negative conflict immediately has you either in defense or shutting down.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So conflict will escalate to that if it's not dealt with.
Yeah.
I mean, on a family scale, on an interpersonal scale, on a global scale, I honestly believe, and I believe this from studying it deeply, that the big global issues, the countries, Israel and Palestine,
Mm,
Ukraine and Russia, all of the wars are just a big picture of the microcosm of
mm.
conflict that goes on in our own families. You
Yes.
know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. It's the same principles. It's the same, maybe bullying versus working it out.
Right.
It's just identical. It's just on a bigger scale.
But it's also what's taught. There was a great video of a Palestinian who met an Israeli, and they were just talking until they realized what they were. And then this Israeli, I think Palestinian, I can't remember which one. Anyway, one of the daughters came up, and when he introduced him, and she realized he was different, he was, quote, the enemy, and, wanted to spit on him and this, that, etc. And I thought, you are so young to have that hatred. That
Right.
hatred has been instilled in you. And this is one of the reasons why we constantly have a repetition. You have family members that don't talk to other people because of something that was done by Auntie Jane 50 years ago,
They're my
and
clients.
right. Right. And it's like, do you even know what the root cause was anymore? All
Yeah,
you've done is you've rode this wave of you've got to hate this person because, and you have
yeah.
no idea why you've got to hate this person. But we teach hate. We teach it in our children by our own actions, our own reactions, and our own dictation. And I think this is what we constantly see repetitively going out that escalates into wars.
It's easier to be against something than for something,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Your
And
responsibility to be for something, accountability to be
I
for something.
think, yeah, I think in the absence of knowing how to do it better,
Mm-hmm.
hate is easier.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Blame is easier.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to stop and look at yourself. It's just the other person. And there's a price to pay for that. I mean, I really tell people in conflict that sorting through it in a family estrangement or whatever the conflict is, it's not easy,
No.
but it's easier than where you are stuck in the
Right.
conflict. And when we handle conflict, we have this short-term, intense work that's a little uncomfortable, as opposed to building up a pile of conflict
Mm.
that's so big. that it's maybe impossible to unpack.
It's
Again,
rather
we
like a
just,
hoarder, isn't it?
yeah, that's
You know,
exactly right.
you go
I
into
call
a
it a
house of a
trash
hoarder.
pile.
You're hoarding these emotions. You're hoarding this hate rhetoric, and it's like really that you just need to kind of clear everything out and simplify. But we carry so much with us, and you know, when you see it in the children, and you think, oh no, this is another cycle. You know, I say that when we look at dysfunctional adults, of which I think we've all become at some point, you know, we can look to our childhood. Did we have
Right.
neglect? Did we have bullying? Did we have abuse? Did we just simply children should be seen and not heard? You know, was there any nurture there? And I think that there's so many wounded children in adults
Mhm.
that we're trying to heal, and that creates conflict in itself.
And I think that's part of the maturing process because none of us are going to have perfect parents.
Hmm.
But we have a job to do given that imperfect. And I've had a nightmare of a childhood, but it was not my job to sit in that or become that. It was
Yeah.
my job to become the best version of myself given that,
Would you say
because
your
like you
journey
said,
to what you're doing now came from that?
oh, there has to be a connection.
Yeah.
I've been a nurse. I've worked in
Hmm.
the ER. I mean, the giving back,
Yes.
the heart
Nurturing.
for serving, the peace, just wanting peace.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I wanted to say real quickly when you talked about our differences and hating each other for our differences. A really good friend of mine said something very wise. She said, "Because I'm not like you, or I don't think like you, doesn't mean I'm against you.
Hmm.
It means I'm me."
Yeah.
And we're all different because we have different biologies, different stories. I mean, we're different, and it's okay to think differently. It feels like a threat,
I
but
know.
it's not,
I know.
it's okay. So
Yeah.
that's where when it feels like a threat, the next step is to tell yourself, ask yourself, is it a threat? It's
Hmm.
like with disappointment. People want to avoid disappointment more than they want to avoid COVID. It's like
Yeah.
disappointment is the worst thing that can happen to you. Honestly, take a second and tell me what is the worst thing that can happen to you if you're disappointed?
Hmm.
Anything?
Well, you're disappointed. Okay, it didn't happen. So what are you going to do about it? Are you going to go and make something happen for yourself? If
Why
you
are we
really
so
mean,
afraid of it?
yeah,
Why are we so afraid of it?
yeah,
And the same with the hate. Hate
yeah,
is fear. Hate is
yes,
fear.
yes.
And figure out what we're afraid of. It can also be there's some pleasure in being superior, feeling a false
Hmm.
sense of superiority to someone else. And
Would you
that's a
classify
human.
that as narcissism? That need
No,
to be
no.
superior?
Yeah, no, because narcissism is one of the words that I think is really overused. In that almost every time in conflict, especially with two people, one person says he's a narcissist, and the other person says she's a
Hmm.
narcissist, and everybody in the room's a narcissist. But the
Hmm.
truth is, we are all narcissistic on a scale, and
Yes.
we slide on that
Yeah.
scale. But we're all of us couldn't be more narcissistic than when we're hurt, because when we're
Mm.
hurt, it's all about us.
Yeah.
And that is the definition of a narcissist, right?
Hmm.
Like it's all about you. So you might be there for a moment. It doesn't mean you are that, but I've had my moments where I've been there. I
Hmm.
think probably we all have if we're
Would you
honest about
also
it.
kind of classify that really as a self-care, self-awareness, self-attention?
Yeah, yeah. Now
And
there's a
I
clinical
think,
narcissist for sure. I don't
yeah,
want to sell that
no,
short,
because
but
the
we're really quick
narcissist,
to put, go ahead.
no, but I've done a few shows on this. I've certainly known quite a few people where it was hurt other people at their expense,
Exactly.
because they have such a need to be revered or to be top of or to be best at, that, I mean, come on, Trump and Putin poster children for it. They don't care who suffers as long as they're revered. Right. And I think that kind of narcissism in its extremity is very, very dangerous. Right. But the narcissism you're talking about is that I'm placing care on myself. So I
Right.
need to be a little selfish with self,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
In order
yes.
to nurture and look after myself. And that is what we're telling people to do. Because when you say to people, take care of yourself, oh, that's being selfish. I need to put everyone else first. Well, how can you look after everyone else if you have no internal oxygen, right? You need to place that care upon yourself so you have something to give other people.
That is so true. And finding the line, one of those best tools in mediation is finding the and.
Mm,
So it's not, can you take care of yourself or take care of other
right.
people? It's how do you take care of yourself and other
Hmm.
people? Because in conflict, we usually see two choices, your choice and my choice,
Hmm.
this or this. And the truth is, there's everything on the spectrum in between that's a possibility. So, what is the and in any of those conflicts? And that's, now you're a senior mediator. So,
I think wounds, wounds. When
mm,
somebody says something to you and you feel like it's a put down, it's like I refer to the terminology of worrying a sore. You've got a cut, you've got a sore, and you keep rubbing it. It's not going to heal if you keep rubbing it.
that's
Leave it
right.
alone and let it heal. And very often you've got people that, salt on the wound, so to speak. And it's like, do you as a wounded person remove yourself from that environment that's wounded you? Yes. But also at the same point, we've got to find our own protection over our wounds so that we don't perceive everything as attacking that wound.
Yeah. So, removing yourself is an option, and it's the easy fix,
Hmm.
to be honest. But there's another option, and that is covering your wound,
Hmm.
healing your wound,
Hmm.
letting whatever's going on go past your wound
Yeah.
instead of into your wound,
Mm.
um, and and uh, and that's way more fulfilling, because
Yeah.
that's about having some sense of agency and empowerment
Yes.
versus fleeing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think when we have that wound, for me, it's a sign. What work do I need to do here? What is the challenge for me? The call for me here? Because yeah, there's some difficult people in the world for sure, but I think there's also people who would not think that person was difficult.
Right, exactly. You look at some people and think, how do they get on together? I can't stand them. Yeah. But peas in a pod because they're on the same vibration. How much would you say our conflict with ourselves or with family or with each other, just conflict in life, is part of our DNA? Our parents were like that, our grandparents were like that. I mean, you're going to say past lives were like that. And at some point, you've got to realize, hang on, I've become like my mother. Right? But that was her story. Why have I made it my story?
Yeah, we're hardwired for a lot of our protection responses,
Mm.
and that even can be bullying. There's so many things we do that we're hardwired because of survival, wanting to survive. But we don't have to do that. I mean,
Right.
we have control over our reactions. We have triggers that we can't control for just a second for sure, but we can learn how to mitigate for those better as well. But everything, if I trigger you because of something I said or did, it's just like your lady with the shoelaces.
Yes.
It's your past
Yeah.
talking. It's not the present
Hmm.
talking. So, finding out what it is that is that trigger and speaking to that, seeing it and understanding it is a kind of like diffusing of that bomb and really giving voice to it too. If it's showing up in a relationship, it's, I experienced this when this happens, and it reminds me of when,
Hmm.
and then what can I do differently? Like,
Right.
that reaction isn't serving me well. It's not serving my relationship well. These things may have worked before when I was 3 or 4 or
Hmm.
5 or 6, but they're not working as an adult. So I need to learn new skills.
We need to become uncomfortable with it. I think, become uncomfortable with this feeling that somebody's personally attacking you or, that somebody's judging you. Be uncomfortable with the feeling that you get within yourself. Why am I letting this person make me feel this way? Right? I don't want to feel like that. It feels uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
if I am uncomfortable with it, what am I going to do about it?
So that sounds like it's as opposed to the opposite of that would be the peace that you get when you know you've done the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or the right response.
I mean, people
Yeah.
don't make change, do they, until they become really uncomfortable with where they're at, right? When you know I'm in so much pain, or I can't take this anymore, or
Mhm.
I just, and you're uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable where you're at. But I think that then becomes the catalyst to
Right.
you being willing to make the changes, because no, you can't help anyone until they themselves are willing to do the work to make the changes.
That's 100% right. You were willing to learn the tools for
Mm.
whatever that change is. You're 100% right on that.
But
Yeah.
again, back to that free will. I think that a lot of our, we talked about narcissism, and in a way that it's become the buzzword because we've become, the finger pointing. It's government's
Ah,
fault. It's this fault. It's that fault, that fault. When I want to say there's three fingers pointing back at you. Okay, so how much accountability do you have? Even if it was something done to you, your reaction to it now is up to you.
that's correct. Yeah, Brene Brown says that blame is just a quick offshoot way of unloading our pain, our hurt, and our anger. And it is a way to keep us from being honest with ourselves
Mm-hmm.
about our own responsibility. So it's a very protective kind of thing. But it also is robbing of us of an opportunity to grow,
Mm-hmm.
which is what you were alluding to earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a sign of a problem to be solved. And the first thing, William Ury, who wrote Getting to Yes, says, in any conflict, the most difficult person in the conflict is the one in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do at some point need to decide, you need to be aware of who you are and how you're being, and ask, is this who I want to be with that person? Is this the memory I want to make? Is this how I want them to see me, forever?
Yeah.
Yeah, because who am I committed to being? What experience am I committed to causing in this relationship? Just
Yeah.
being purposeful in how we approach our relationships.
I know that in mine coming out, it was the intense browbeating. And as I kind of more and more removed myself from it, eventually when I asked for a divorce, it was that woman took the control I had over you away from me. So it was all about control. And then when it came up with that intense browbeating again, it would be, please take it up with your mirror. That's the only one that's interested.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
In other words, I'm not.
Yeah, that's a great point. So that goes back to the identifying, is that your problem?
Yeah.
Does it fit? No, doesn't fit. So that's at least examining it. You have
Hmm.
to examine it. You can't just put it on
No,
someone else.
no.
That's blame. But
Hmm.
if you examine it and that's like, yeah, that's not me, that one's yours,
Yes. Yeah.
then you don't even have to get upset about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like you're not owning it, you're not wearing it, you're not putting that ugly stuff all over you. It's like, yeah, no thanks, that's yours.
The other
That's an
thing too,
option.
that is an option. The other thing is, if you're coming out of some conflict, a relationship or anything that's going on, and you're expecting an apology, you
Mm,
may be waiting a long time. It was 22 years later that my ex said to me, I apologize. I shouldn't have married your mother. I'm not a marriage material, and I'm sorry what I did to her. And that just came out of the blue. I was celebrating my son's birthday. Uh, and I never looked for one because he was oblivious of what he was doing. He was, complete denialist. Wasn't me. Even if you showed him a video, wasn't me.
mhm, mhm.
And if I had to wait for him to acknowledge it was him doing this, if I had to wait for an apology, then I'll be slowing myself down on my own progressive
Right.
growth, and I had to move on. So I
That's
think
right.
sometimes but why can't they own it? Why can't they just say it? No, you got to realize that's their problem that you've just handed to them. Now take care of yourself and move on. Don't be defined by their apology because it
That's
may never
beautiful.
come.
That's exactly right. That's another why can't is kind of like it implies that he or she should be doing
Mm,
this. And, I hear a lot of, well, I've done all this work and they haven't. And I say, yet. We do it when it's time in our life to do it, to make
yes.
those changes, to address those hard things. And we don't know, even if we're married to somebody, we don't
Hmm.
know what's going on inside of them, what struggle they're having, what they're trying to overcome, who they're trying to be. I mean, we don't. We just decide where they're supposed to be at. And,
Right.
that's hard because who am I to say where someone else should be
Yes.
on their growth scale? Now I get it because I feel the same way sometimes. It's like, I say the should things, and but then
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, no, that's not mine. That's theirs.
But also it's when you've got people that like, oh, I have just grown leaps and bounds. I've had this epiphany. I've learned this and
Mhm.
that, and I want to show them. And you've got to come live with me. You've got to do this. You've got to do. It makes me feel like that. But again, that's again your journey. You can share the enthusiasm of what it's doing for you, but it's
Mhm.
rather like you can't tug on the flower before it's ready to bloom. You
Yeah,
can't tug on the roots. Inspiration begets invitation. Maybe they're so inspired but the growth and the leaps and bounds that you have stepped into yourself, it becomes that invitation for them to take the journey. But you can't dictate when they take that journey. You can only inspire it. And if they don't take it, that's up to them.
perfect. That's very well said. And I think you've planted seeds when they see it. I could see wanting to share it, right?
Mm.
Maybe we want to change someone, but it's like a delicious ice cream. This is
Uh-huh.
so good. You've got to have some.
But I hate
I think.
licorice.
Oh, yeah. I think a really good thing to do if you wanted to do that, if you felt compelled to do that, is to ask, hey, I've just discovered some earth shaking thing
Hmm.
that's just going to change your world. Can I share it with
Hmm.
you? And if you have a yes, then the person has chosen that and you're not running it down their,
Ramming down
nose.
their
But
throats. Yeah. It's kind of like, in the movie when Harry met Sally, I'll have what she's having. Right? When
oh,
somebody
that's
gets
right. That's right.
right, and when somebody sees that really you cannot be orgasmic about life, right? It's like, wow, what a change. What are you doing? And
Yes.
and then you say, I worked on myself. I put myself first. I invested in me. And for some people, oh God, that sounds like too much work. Until
It,
until they realize, you know what, if I don't do this, I'm just living a living death. I guess it's
mhm,
time to do it. So you have planted that seed in there. Or to
mhm,
other people, like, I really want to jump on this bandwagon, show me how.
mhm.
But again, they can't copy your journey. They can be inspired by it and the skills and the tools you used, but they've got to use those skills and tools to on them in a different way. It's got to be something that suits them and their growth.
That's personal to them, yeah.
Mm.
And I would even further that to say maybe there's nothing about my journey that will help you, and you'd be better off watching how somebody else does it
Yeah.
and learning from them because we're just so far apart in that. It's yeah, honoring our strengths and learning from our differences and trying to bring those all together.
We've got so many people of inspiration out there right now in podcasts, TED Talks, YouTube, and there, I hear people quoting me, this, that, etc. And it's like you're quoting and you're inspired by this person, but I don't see any change in your life. And I would say when you're going to listen, choose to learn, then apply. And so many
Ah,
people are still in the listening, but they don't realize they need to learn from it to a point that they apply.
that is a beautiful point. And I think one thing about that is we tell people they're doing something wrong without telling them how to do it right. You know what
Exactly.
I'm saying?
Hmm.
And so my son played tennis, and he had a coach who said the most cruel thing we can do to each other is tell each other what we're doing wrong without telling each other how to do it right. I don't know if that's the most cruel thing that we can
Hmm.
do, but if you think about how many times you tell someone that's not what I need without telling them what you do need,
You make them
or
feel
tell them
small.
what
Yeah.
they've done wrong
Yeah.
without telling them how they need to fix it.
Yeah. Or
Again,
even
it's
what's
that.
right about them.
Oh,
You
that
know,
too.
your backhand was right, but your forehand was wrong. If you change position and this and that, then your good front hand would be as good as your backhand. All right.
Yeah,
But it's just all we can do is
that's true.
share the skills and the abilities. Again, it comes to that person's application. And, we feel again, like going back to my son, when we talked about before, is that because I have fibromyalgia and he was always trying to fix me, Mum, you need to do this, you mum, you need to do that. And one day I just took his hands and I said, my darling, stop trying to fix me because you make me feel broken. Just simply put your arms around me and love me, and that's all I need to heal. or to
Yes.
manage in this case. And it took a burden off his shoulder feeling that he had to fix me, right? But also doesn't see me as so broken. And I think, if we're constantly looking at people, well, you're broken, you're this, you're that, and then you go, well, all he's pointing out is the brokenness. Is there anything in here that can be restored?
Yeah. And even ourselves, because there's a point in our search for improvement that it's really healthier to understand that because we're human, we're flawed, and there's a degree of that flaw that we don't need fixed. We
Right.
need growth. We need
Yes.
maybe to become the best version of ourselves, but that's not the same as never making a mistake
Right.
or never stepping on someone's toes. That's just it's
That's
knowing
called being a
yourself.
human.
It's called being a human. I mean, I know what my weaknesses are. I know where the things are that, yeah, I'm going to keep that. I'm not going to fix it because there's other things that I'm working on. And, I'm just going to let myself be human. And then I think it helps us let other people do the same,
Yeah.
without expecting this level of perfection that none of us
Mm.
are. And it's too hard to go through life trying to get there.
And what's
It's
perfect for one
exhausting.
isn't for another. It's in the
That's
art,
right.
like art, in the eye of the beholder, right? It's
Well, it's a for now thing too. It's
mhm,
perfect for now, but it won't be the
exactly.
next second. Yeah.
I love the word flawsome. When I first heard it, I thought this is perfect because we all have beautiful flaws, but they're also part of our intricacies of who we are, their little quirks. And I think is that if we take our flaws and we recognize them, as long as they're not detrimental to ourselves or anyone else, they're just kind of part of who you are. It's your
Mhm.
quirk, and become awesome about it. In spite of it, I've got stacks of flaws, but it is how it makes Sarah up. I mean, all of those pieces together make Sarah the quirky Sarah that she is, right? And so comparison and competing are two words I absolutely hate because competing, leave it to sports or competition, not comparing or competing with someone else. You will never, ever be Beyonce. Beyonce's taken, right? She's
Don't tell
already.
my daughter that. Just don't tell my.
You can be inspired by her, right? But you can't become her. You can become what you admire about her, or the strength about her, the abilities about her, but you can
Mhm.
never be her. But you can find all those within yourself, right? And
And
be
here's
just as awesome.
the second part of that is don't assume that it's easy for her either,
Oh, yeah.
or
Yes.
that she's always got it easy, or
Yeah.
that she doesn't struggle and suffer. And I will say, to be a superstar, they're doing work that we can't even imagine. That's why most of us are not superstars. We're not putting in the kind of work that it takes to get there. It
Right.
takes a lot. And that's okay. It's
Yes,
okay. But
their chosen
they
path, but
make
they
it
pay
look
for it
so
high.
easy. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's exactly right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you look at, Twitch before Christmas who committed
Oh.
suicide, and you look at this and you go, just the day before, dancing with his wife and the family, and you looked at this and thought, this is the most upbeat guy. And then just went off and committed suicide, which I know that an awful lot of people have done that on Prozac, because Prozac was one of those drugs that definitely people did it in the moment without intending to do it, I think. And also there is that deep, dark depression that people get of despair where there is
Mm.
no rationale, there is no logic or anything. You're in the moment of that despair and you just want to pull the plug. And I think many of those people didn't intend to die. They were just trying to stop the pain. And
Amen.
again, we see one picture, but
That's
look at
right.
Robin Williams, look at so many. And it's
That's
like
right.
we're at the top of the game. They're so funny. They're this, they're that, but we don't know the turmoil that's going inside of them because we've assumed.
For every single person. And
Yeah.
that those people that you hate,
Hmm.
and the religions of the people, and the nationalities, and the people that are different from you, they have the exact same things that you do: pain
Yeah.
in the inside, joy, people who love them, they want the same things. We're all so much more similar than we are different. And yeah, we compare our best with other people's worst. Oh, look at me, I'm so much better than my neighbor because I do this with my kids. Well, we don't know their whole story, right?
Right.
Or our worst with other people's best. Look at Beyonce, she's got
Mm.
everything, I've got nothing. And the truth is, we're just looking at a snapshot of those
Mm.
people, and their whole story is as complex as ours.
Again, we're assuming, and that
Right.
assumption is very dangerous. Um, And also, if you're measuring yourself against someone, I will never be like them. You're denying yourself of what you are meant to be. But it goes back to, I think, inquiry. You know, okay, I'm at this crossroads. I think I can only do this. I think I can only do that. But I don't know what I'm capable of doing until I put that one foot in front of the other and try. Explore. Every single thing I've ever done in my life, right or wrong, is because I stepped into exploration. Podcasting, I didn't even know what a podcast was when I started. And I was on another network, thrown into it live. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. A great learning curve for me. I had to think on my feet. And then I started my own network and I had to learn everything from scratch there. But I'm not waiting until it's perfect. I am doing it until it gets better.
That's beautiful.
And fourth of
The
April is my
courage
11th
in that. The courage in that. So it's being willing to live outside your comfort zone, or at least
I
step
think probably
outside
because
your
I've never
comfort
been
zone.
comfortable. I don't know what comfort is. I only know what kind of
Searching, seeking,
yeah. It's the
exploring.
exactly. It's like if you get too comfortable, I think one can get complacent, and I don't like complacency, not for me, because I think that's stagnation. And it's I've constantly always moved and constantly always explored and constantly always done that. Um,
Mm.
and well, you're out running, you're running away from yourself. No, I'm in exploration. What's next?
You're
Where
living
else next?
fully. You're
Yeah.
living fully. You're living your story. That's beautiful.
I
You
think,
used the
it's not for everyone.
term, you used the term living dead before, right? Is that what you said? Something
Hmm.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are days when I admire the folks who can just, hang out on the couch and watch
Hmm.
TV because
Yes. Wouldn't that be a lovely
because
luxury?
sometimes, but knowing that that's not who I am.
Hmm.
I hope that there is true fulfillment for those folks, and it's not an absence of being willing to try, or maybe there's a lot of reasons, that could be. But I like to assume that that's people are where they choose to be, and that's where they're supposed to be for now.
For now.
And it isn't for now because you always have another choice the very next moment.
I think ignorance, I think we've all got to understand we're always going to be ignorant of something. But
Mhm.
again, I think going back to that inquiry, the kind of wanting to know something, ask, even if you don't ask the right question, and maybe you don't even understand the answer, but ask the other question, can you explain it in a different way? Or do you mean this? Or do you mean that? We've become kind of
Yes.
fearful in the inquiry because we don't want to look stupid. I've
Yep.
gone in looking stupid anyway. Nobody expects me to make and it's like, don't be afraid don't be afraid to ask the questions, because I think for me, stupid is when you assume you know everything and you haven't asked any questions to learn, right?
Right.
It's,
No, that's right.
you've got the arrogant ignorance out there. And it's, what I know is I know and I'm right because I'm not willing to learn any other side of it. And
That's
that
right.
conflict is going to be very conflicting with many people.
Yeah, we're paying a price for thought processes like that. I'm right
Mm,
and I know it, and there's
mm,
nothing else, black and white
mm,
thinking. That's when I introduced my spectrum somewhere between black and white. Well, where are the colors?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know,
There's always
um,
different shades of white, different shades of black, right? Is
right. And everything
nothing
in
is black and
between.
white, everything in between. And I think that, what is your truth right now? People say, what is your truth? Well, this is my truth right now. But I may
Right
learn
now.
something tomorrow and my truth may change. It is never going to change radically from the core of what my truth is.
Right.
But my observing or understanding of that truth may change.
Yeah, that's very threatening to people because we want, a lot of my people come in, well, 10 years ago he said this and now he's saying this, so he was lying then.
Uh-huh,
Or even a week ago they said
uh-huh.
this and now they're saying this and now they're lying. It feels very threatening to a person who wants to hold on to this is now, so
Yeah.
this is forever. And the
Mhm.
truth is exactly what you just said. This is true for now. And as I learn and grow or think about it, I change my mind. And that is normal. It's not that you're lying.
Mhm.
It's
You've
probably that you're
evolved.
being more honest.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes our first answer is, us trying to say the right thing,
Uh-huh.
or it's our triggered answer. It's sometimes not our best answer. So a lot of times I tell people, especially if they get a no first, revisit it because we're wired to
Mm,
say no. Most people say no before they say yes.
yes.
And,
And that
so we
doesn't
think
apply
that's a
to men
hard
and
no.
sex. When a woman says no, she means no.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
Thank you for that. Thank
put
you
a
for clarifying
disclaimer
that.
in there. Yes.
For now,
Yes.
maybe
Yeah.
for now, maybe forever. You have to discern between those kind of things. Yeah, definitely.
I think also stop being afraid of conversation. It's either people are afraid of it because they fear they're not smart enough, or well, somebody's overpowering the conversation, or they just don't know how to converse, or feel they've got nothing to converse. Is that we learn through conversation. We learn from being inquiring of each other, from somebody else's perspective, from opening up our minds. And I think an open mind opens our hearts. An open heart opens our minds. And when we're willing to let that in, and the soul wisdom just comes right through us, we have those wonderful aha moments of like, I had never thought of it from that point of view. And it
mhm,
changes your world to see it from a different angle.
mhm. Yeah, care enough to ask what's going on inside of another person. There's almost nothing that will connect you more. Care enough to
Mm.
see them, not what you want them to be, not what you want to see, but who they are. And it matters. It's how relationships are built.
Yes. Yeah, and we're all different and we're all perceived different. I'm perceived different in my family as I'm to here because, I've been typecasted, mum,
Mm,
grandma, and it's kind of what they want from me. So they see and interact with me with what they want from me and may not see the whole of me. That's okay. For a
that's
while
true.
that bothered me. Why can't you see me? And it's like, it's not really what they need from me, this other side of me. This is what they need from me. This is what they're extracting from me. And I think, we've all got this, but why don't they see me? I think that's a lot of the time what we ask, right? But they're going to see what they need from you, maybe not the entire picture of you.
That's very interesting, especially as a parent, from
Mm,
parents, because we have a bit of a role. And in doing that role, our kids don't really get to know all of us. And I'm
mm,
not sure, at what point, maybe along the way, instead of being a parent and playing that role, we share the rest of it, that we're not so certain,
yeah.
that we don't know if you really need to eat your vegetables or your teeth will fall out or whatever. Yeah, I don't know because I know that, very dear friend of mine said one time when I was having conflict with my growing boys that, Kim, I think they just don't know you. They don't know your
Mm,
story. They
yeah,
know you as mom. And that'll stick with me forever. As they're older, they know me more.
right.
But they'll never know all of me because I had that mom role. And
Exactly.
I don't know if maybe that's something that we can't somewhere. I tell my kids, I know that I did a better job raising my kids than my parents did, and
Hmm.
it's their job to do a better job. So
Exactly.
maybe they'll let themselves be seen, but still being the person in charge because kids need to know that there's somebody capable of handling what they can't without having to be, omnipotent.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be able to still share that you're worried and or that it's hard or that all the struggles that we try to hide when we're parenting.
Being vulnerable with self is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, but being vulnerable with your loved ones in trust. And then sometimes they may kind of, you know, knock that vulnerability a little bit. And it's like, they're not trying to shatter it. It's just that it is probably hard for them to comprehend. And they're going to get from you what they are willing to see of you. And you sometimes you do. Why can't you see this side? I've got one daughter that does, and a son that is on the same track and this one of what people I'm interviewing, but doing it his way. And I've got another daughter that sees me as mum and grandma. And so it's
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 true.
okay. It's okay because that is not a definition of who I am. I know who I am. They're seeing pieces of me of what they need to see
That's
of
right.
me. And I think
Yeah.
again, if we could understand that with people around us, Why, why am I can talk anything with this person, with this person, I can only talk about this because that's what they see in you. It's not an affront to you. It's not a
That's
criticism
correct.
of you. It's just that that's the channel that's open for them.
That's right. That's right. That's where the relationship works, and it's in a different track for each person. Yeah, I have a son. All my kids have nicknamed me. I've had so many names besides mom. Now most of them call me Mama, which I think is cute. But my one son calls me Momster.
Oh dear.
I've been Kimbo, Mambo, Monster. Yeah, I love it. I'm proud of my name. I just sent a card to him today and I signed it Momster.
I don't know if the kids have got a name for me. Wacky for sure. I mean, they love making fun of me because with the dyslexia and also my English, say words that are kind of really wacky, or sometimes say things in different orders, right? And they know I'm very kind of free-spirited. So it's, they like to make fun of mum. And it's like, okay, I'm entertaining.
Okay, so us Americans love an accent, and to me, you sound like the Queen. So
My
it's
husband and
beautiful.
I.
Charles.
Oh God, not Camilla, no. But I was brought up with that. But it is funny when we look at our generations. At my grandson's birthday was the other grandparents as well. They're just a few years on for me. They're in their early 70s. I'm 68. And the Scottish descent, and also talking about the Canadian. And my daughter had the ancestry done, and there's her father is Chinese, so there's 1% Korean in there. We go, how did that get in there? And it's understanding that each and every one of us is like the box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And I think if we can look at each other as just a different chocolate in the box, which makes it more exciting, and it's not one dominance over the other, we all bring something, right? We
Yeah,
all bring something. And we might not be everybody's flavor, but that's okay.
or somebody else's flavor.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there's room for all of us.
I think the biggest conflict we do have is that with self. Because if we're in turmoil with ourselves, we're going to be in turmoil with anything that's said to us or done to us, right? When we can calm our own waters, we can take that breath. We can deduce really kind of what is that person really saying? Do I nearly to react to that? And sometimes, I have the mama voice. We had a guy that once that broke in the middle of the night on a hot summer's day. He was wearing a bright red sweater and he broke into my living room. And I just stood there with my arms left. What do you think you're doing? And the guy, and just ran.
Did you call it your mom voice? Because I say I have my mom voice too. It makes
Yeah,
it makes it makes grown-ups quiver when I use
yes.
my mom voice.
But it's
It's
always
the
like when
only
mum went into that voice, you paid attention.
That's exactly right. I think that's why, men, when us women get that voice,
Uh-huh.
they get scared. I
Yeah,
think it triggers
mum.
their mom. No. No. Oh, you had one of those too, I see. Yeah, yeah, that's very
Yeah,
funny.
but I think we can say, I'm not saying that you need to put up with anything that ever said to you and ignore it and just go la la la.
Mhm.
We
Nope.
have our own boundaries and our own tolerance. But I think that when somebody says something to us and say, why did you say that? Instead of that will not be tolerated. And the tone of voice puts a full stop to it and immediately tells them, I'm not accepting anymore. So I
Mhm.
think sometimes we need to use those tones, change our tune, not react, take that deep breath and let them know boundaries not acceptable.
I tell you, and I would add to that, and this is even more powerful, I do think, it's to say, I care for you,
Hmm.
and that will not be tolerated.
Right.
I care for you, but you are not going to talk to me that way.
Exactly.
I think you really have someone's attention when you let them know that you're still connected to them, but what they're doing is not okay. So you're
Right.
not rejecting them, you're
Yeah.
rejecting their behavior.
Yes. 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 And I think that's also, I think, where we need to draw the line. I had a friend who's like, I brought them into the world and I can take them out. And it's like, it always scared, ow. And never ever should we as parents Um, Discipline our children with the love threat. I won't love you if.
Oh, yeah.
Our children are going to make mistakes, and believe me, I would be one to speak to them. That was stupid. You know it, don't you? You know, what did you learn from this? It had nothing to do with how much I loved them or how much I was there
Mhm,
to help them pick up the pieces. Right?
mhm,
Anytime you use the love thing, I won't love you if, then that's not real love.
mhm. No, that should never be a threat. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness. And then so much of our love is conditional now. And I
Mm.
don't know that there's completely unconditional. I think, to be loved, you need to be lovable.
Yes.
You can't do whatever
Yeah.
you want and expect someone to love you. You have to be inputting too. But but we do use conditions. I love you if, or I
Yeah.
love you when.
Yeah.
And it's harder. Is it harder to love someone when they've upset us? In the moment, we may not like them, but we can still love them.
Hmm.
And I think looking toward, do I want this connection to be down the road when at your angriest? Maybe you don't care if it goes, but later it'll matter.
Yeah.
So just trying to keep connection and resolve the conflict and speak your truth both at the same time.
I've always encouraged, because it's something I learned in my marriages, trying to speak it at the time when the anger was there would just be raised voices and nobody would get anywhere.
Yeah.
A, take a step back, go and do your own thing, but also write. And it's like, write everything out, read it, right? Do you really want to say this? Do you really want to send it or email, whatever it is you're doing? Um, and then you've spent your emotion on how you feel. Now write it again in a way that you want them to receive it. And then give each other that letter, piece of paper, whatever it is, and say, please digest it before we come to the table. And then
Mhm.
you've calmed down, you've read how that person feels, what they really were trying to say. Now you can actually have a conversation and articulate things without the fireworks.
Mhm. And be willing to listen because
Yes.
listening is the biggest part of it. And we think that getting our point across is the most important
Hmm.
thing, but it's not. If we're willing to hear the other
Yeah.
person's point and affirm it, we will definitely be able to get ours across.
Yeah. This is where I find that the writing was because I could read it, digest it, and then come at it from a different
Tweak it.
angle. You tweak
Hmm.
it, yeah, and then come at it from a different understanding. And aren't we just all wanting just to be understood?
Absolutely. To be seen. I call it to
Mm,
be seen. Yeah. And
yeah.
to be okay with what people see when they see us, for that
Hmm.
to be okay,
Yeah. Yeah, as I say, I
Mhm.
may not be everybody's cup of tea. I'm somebody's strong cup of black coffee, and this is the thing. I know when I started podcasting, which for me now next week would be 11 years starting as a podcast, and it would be, you've got to do it this way, you've got to do it that way, you've got to do it this way. And it's like, I can only do it Sarah's way. I can
That's
learn
right.
some techniques and skills from other people, but I can only do it Sarah's way. Here's the kicker. You can listen or not listen. That's up to you.
That's exactly right. I think our superpower is being ourselves.
Yes.
And I think our authenticity is our superpower. We just
Yeah.
have to be, it doesn't it take bravery though? I'm not going to
And
try to fit in
discovery.
and be like you want me to be. I'm going
Yeah.
to be brave enough to be who I am. And I might disagree with you because that's who I am. Or I might not let you know that I disagree with you, but I don't have to become what you think I should be.
Mm,
And I think a big thing for me that I am feeling impacted by is kind of a summary of this, which says the person I'm responsible for is me.
yes.
I'm not responsible. And I mean, for growing, for critiquing, for looking up a mirror, that's me.
Mm,
And I need to let you have yours
yeah.
too. It's not, I call it my lane. I think
Hmm. Hmm.
AA uses that,
Yeah.
knowing where your lane is and respecting where someone else is.
And knowing that lanes are going to cross or even ride side by
Yeah.
side. All right. But
I,
it's
there's
knowing
an
who
our
you are.
lane.
Hmm. Yeah,
Your
exactly.
lane,
Yeah.
my lane, our lane. And yeah.
I always say, like in relationship, there's beautiful picture of a man and woman, and then the face in the middle is the combined. And I always say, when you're in a relationship, bring your whole self. The person needs to love you for who you are, vice versa, but who you become when you're together is
Oh,
is the
yeah.
third person in the relationship. The combination of the two of you, but it's not at the sacrifice of you as individuals.
That sounds amazing. Yeah.
But that is, I think, if we could stop looking, um, you need someone else to love you, to validate you, or you need to someone to verify you or value you for you to value yourself. If you want people to value you or love you, first value and love yourself, because that's the vibration you're putting out. That's the frequency. And those are going to be the people that will come in and see you for that value and that love.
That is true. That is very true.
It's getting there though, right? That self-discovery.
I,
And it's
yeah,
willing
it's
to
a
take the
life
journey to get there.
journey.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you find someone that you can walk that journey with together, all the
Yeah,
better.
yeah, exactly. And I think it's, never give up and never give in on yourself. You can take a pause. Sometimes we just need to be still for a moment and catch up with ourselves, or just, I have a great art in the nothingness of just doing nothing, letting your everything it is empty out as a beautiful blank slate, and then allowing that paintbrush to paint a new canvas without dictating what it should be. I've been in discovery of myself all my life, but what I've discovered more through podcasting in the last 11 years has really defined me coming into myself. And when you find that something or that someone that allows you to be in that discovery of yourself, and you get to that point of like, I really like who I am, what I've become, what I stand for, what my contribution is, then I think you really have come home to self. And
Mhm.
when you're at home with self, you don't see conflict in a conflicting way. You see it more as an inquiry or investigation into something.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. Now I'm going to take you from master mediator to doctorate mediator. No, I think that's very, very well said. And it is a journey. And if you're not, it's a life journey. It's
It
it's
is.
it's not a place you ever get to
No.
exactly. You kind of,
Different levels, right? Just different
yeah,
levels of
and
life.
yeah, it's like the same coach said, getting better at a skill isn't a straight slant up
Mm,
trajectory. It's like this, it's zigzagged.
hmm.
And I thought how much that applies to all the skills we
Yeah.
have in life. Not that, maybe a better way to say that is the 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And the thing I want to say with the step back, it doesn't mean you've fallen all the way down the
No.
mountain. Just it means that's normal and you can take the next step forward again.
Just look at it as a cha-cha-cha. Put a
There you
rhythm to
go.
it. But also, when people get to that crossroads, or, I don't know, I thought I was on the right trajectory and I don't understand why things aren't going right. And I say there's two things to do here. Stop and pause.
Mhm,
Look back from where you've come and you'll see how far you've come. All
mhm.
right. Look at how much stronger and how many more abilities and how much more courage and how much more you know from where you were over there. And maybe the pause of where you're going is because the universe has paused you because you're wanting to go this way and it wants you to go that way.
It's time to go another direction.
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted my kids to know is they can change their mind. If it's
Yes.
not working, change your mind, because I feel like the things I paid the heaviest price for in my
Mm,
life were things I knew that they were wrong,
yeah.
but I was on that path and I never learned that changing path was okay, that maybe it's time to change paths. I learned that you're supposed to stay there and keep moving. And I don't know, I tell my kids, do it until it doesn't work anymore. And
Exactly.
then take the next turn that's the next right turn. And it's,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And in my generation, changing all the time, which I did, because I never kind of, I was in investigating of who's Sarah and what's she doing. And, this is the only thing that I've ever really stayed at, that it has meant
That's
something to
awesome.
me. So I found my niche, right? Which took me a long time to get there. But it's like but you failed at it. So, because you didn't continue. No, I didn't fail at it. I got what
Nope.
I needed to get out of it. Now I'm
That's
taking
right.
that information and applying it to someone else. We've forgotten wonderment or discovery.
That's
And,
right.
again, it's going back to that complacency. Well, I guess, how many people have I interviewed said, I stayed in a job because I was good at it, even though I hated it? Because I didn't know
That's
what
a,
else I could do. Right? Well, where was the discovery? Oh, the things that you could do in that job. How about you apply it to something, the big P word, passion. Where's your passion?
another P word, permission. Give yourself
Yeah,
permission to do it.
yeah.
Because we've been told we're not supposed to. We're
Yeah, yeah.
supposed to be good children and line up and go
Mm,
down the path on the hallway of just like the
yes.
teacher says we should. And yeah, we're freer than that
Yeah,
now. We're freer than that
we
now.
are.
Yeah.
And the more experience you have in many different fields in life, like if you're a neurosurgeon, I'd like you to be a neurosurgeon. Thank you before you open up my
Uh,
brain,
uh,
right?
uh,
But I mean, look at yourself. On our end, you were in that industry, and it was like, okay, this has served its time now. I'm in discovery mode of where else I can go and what else I can do. But all that you learned as an RN and skills and mindset and heart set and everything else we applied to where you are now, in the journey that you are now. Nothing's wasted, is it? We just
I will
use it in a different
suggest
way.
it ends up going full circle because
Uh-huh.
after RN was graduate school in psychology, then back to nursing, and then graduate school in conflict. And this part of my life has brought everything else
Mhm.
full circle, which I did not see that coming. So I think that goes back to the being open to whatever the path is, taking the step,
Yeah.
being willing to be uncomfortable and not
Yes.
even sure, uncertain and
Mm.
uncomfortable. And if you take a step, the ground will appear.
Yeah, it will. Step out into the abyss, blind, deaf, and dumb, in order to see, hear, and feel. Trust. And that, I think, is another show we need to do actually on the word trust. Right? So, gotta have you back again when we can dissect trust, because that is a huge one, isn't it? A huge one.
That and forgiveness. I think we could do a
Yeah.
whole entire one on forgiveness as well. And
Yeah.
apology and
Yeah.
forgiveness are good. Yeah, I think
So,
learning how to apologize right.
yeah.
That's a great great gift.
Yeah. Okay. So you're coming back again. No brainer.
Oh, absolutely, anytime. I just
Anyway,
want to wish you all the blessing in the world as you move forward, about to have a grandbaby, and
yes, another grandbaby. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will be thinking of you, and I just hope you and your family have a just beautiful time of it.
Yeah, well, he's a special child because he's Down syndrome. But, I think all of these children that come in are differently abled are here to teach us. And we know that there'll be certain challenges that we need to be cognizant of, but it's what are we here to learn from our children? And I think it's a two-way street with children. We teach them, they teach us. And if we're
Absolutely.
if we're open to willing to learn, it shows us things that we never thought that we would see or feel.
That's what will you're on a brand new journey,
Mm,
you know? It's
yeah,
just a brand new one.
and
Isn't
just
it
be
funny?
wondrous about it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and share it with us.
That I will be doing for sure. Now, the book, folks, How to Live Forever, a guide to writing the final chapter of your life story. So that's by Kimberly Best. That is on Amazon. Her site is best, like her name, bestconflictsolutions.com. And she's on LinkedIn, Kimberly, Best Mediator, on Twitter, Kimberly, A Best, Facebook, Best Conflict Solutions, and Instagram, Kimberly A Best. So you can find her everywhere. And of course, she's done the show with us before, so please come back and listen to that. That was the biology of conflict, where we kind of talked a little bit more kind of around the whole spectrum of it. And she will be definitely back with forgiveness, permission, trust. We've got so much more to concentrate on. And I'm glad really that we kind of stayed with the conflict today, because when we look at it, we can be conflicted on so many different things. And permission, we're always looking for permission from someone else. We only need to give it to ourselves, and we don't realize that. But I think a big one, the forgiveness, huge, and trust. Very big ones. And I think they hold people back a great deal. So definitely she's coming back, folks, and we've got more to talk about. So Kimberly, my darling, always wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Folks, a lot to be digested here today. I do suggest you share out the podcast. Go and have a nice cheese and wine with your friends and discuss what you learned from it. How has it helped you look at conflict in a different way? How, have you been practicing your conflict? And just listen to each other, because what somebody else got from it is a nectar for you, another skill and tool for you. No blame, no shame, just openness, listen, learn, and support one another. Until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Find all of our shows on selfdiscoverymedia.com under podcasts or self-discoverymedia/shows. And for all our current shows, go to What's New. We are supported by you, the audience. You'll see a nice big shiny blue button for one-time donations or follow us on Patreon and you will be able to support us there. We enjoy bringing you such wisdom. And the next show will be up in just a moment.